Welcome to Technovation. I'm your host, Peter High. My guest today is Andrew Brock. Andrew is the president of digital technologies and global chief information officer of Associa, a multi-billion-dollar revenue residential real estate company with 15,000 employees across 350 offices worldwide. Andrew's been with the company for more than 11 years and has been CIO for more than 7, and he's grown his responsibilities to be both customer-facing and revenue-generating across his tenure. He's also the president and chief executive officer of HOAM Ventures, a private investment firm focused on unleashing the future of real estate innovation. I look forward to hearing more about his remarkable journey from both perspectives through this conversation. Andrew, welcome to Technovation. It's great to speak with you today.
Oh my gosh, Peter, thank you so much for having me. It's a real honor to be here with you. Thank you so much.
I'm honored as well, Andrew. Thank you. You're nice to say that. Well, I wonder if you wouldn't mind, just for context setting purposes, Andrew, for those who may be less familiar with Associa, could you take a bit of time and share a bit beyond what I already have as to the business that you're in?
Sure, absolutely. Associa is the world's largest residential property management company. And a lot of folks may be more familiar with commercial property management as an example, if their office building is in some office complex managed by a management company. Our company is still owned by its founder. It's been in place for 44 years, and we currently serve about 7 million homeowners. So if you think about homeowners associations or big condo or co-op buildings, those organizations are led by a residential board of directors, and they're little corporations, not-for-profit corporations, but they have all the responsibilities of overseeing those assets, which in many cases is someone's, largest purchase, largest asset in their portfolios, their home. And the industry is vast, and you might not even think about the significance of it, but there are about 74 million folks who live in managed communities in the United States. And the value of those homes, those assets under management, is $11 trillion. And as we get even a little further into it, if you think about the monthly or annual assessments that are paid into living in those communities, it's $135 billion a year of the flow of funds. And so if you think about that large group of real estate, about 40% of those communities don't use professional services. They manage it themselves. So 40% of $135 billion in cash, right? $55 billion of cash being managed without necessary professional oversight, or 4.4 trillion in assets. So obviously a lot of money, a lot of value floating around. Our organization is the largest. And as I mentioned, we've been around 44 years. We have about 7 million homeowners in our portfolio. So
that's great context, Andrew. What scale we're talking about? Just remarkable. I'd love to also hear a bit more about your role. An interesting title, President of Digital Technologies, as well as Global Chief Information Officer. Peel back the onion for us on that, please.
We started as a property management company. And back when the industry was just beginning, the condo buildings were starting to happen in the 60s and 70s, and it required a unique set of skills to manage those properties. But over time, we recognized that there were significant services and products we could offer to the communities that we were serving, from maintenance to insurance and financial services to restoration services if they had some sort of disaster in their community. And that list has continued to evolve over time as our company has grown. And our company, as I mentioned, is the largest in the industry, and we only have about 10% of the market. Highly fragmented, as I mentioned, many of the communities manage their communities themselves, but our growth is primarily through acquisition. So we are in operation, manage a mergers and acquisitions firm. So we're acquiring management companies to the tune of 1 to 2 management companies a month. And that pace has been maintained for, the 11 years I've been here for sure, and obviously well before that. So our growth continues to kind of exponentially grow. And so if you think about that, the management services, the idea that Forbes, announced, famously back in 2017, every company is a technology company. Our firm is very much that way. So endless ways to deploy technology services to the communities in which we operate. So a few years ago, our company basically divided into three divisions. One is the oversight of the management services. So the property managers and the teams that are producing the management services to those communities. The capital organization, which is focused on our inorganic growth strategies. And then our digital technologies division, which includes, I would say, the IT functions of the organization, but also includes some exciting technology companies, which we launched in order to serve those companies, in order to serve those communities. So I've got the technology pieces as well as these new go-to-market software companies.
I would love to hear more about the technology companies that the organization has launched, and in so doing, maybe you could talk a bit more about the genesis of this whole notion to begin with. I mean, as you pointed out, many organizations are on that pathway to becoming a technology company in fill in the blank industry. Talk a bit more about the launch of that vision within your organization, as well as the opportunity to lead this function as well, if you would.
Oh, sure. Well, I think it's important to just note that everything in companies typically starts at the top. So this, I would say, is all of the vision and support and honestly unwavering strategic and focus from our chairman and CEO, who has
John
embraced
Corona, yes.
John Corona, absolutely, the founder of our firm, and the company is owned by him and his family. And he has embraced technology from the day he started the firm 44 years ago. So he would tell you technology from, the original fax machines and those kinds of things. He embraced it as soon as it came out. So there's a part of, I would say, the secret to our success that is really just the focus and the vision of our founder and CEO. So let me just start there. So with all that to say, his encouragement ever since I stepped into the CIO role has always been to innovate, to improve however we needed to improve our existing operations. That's obviously important. Improve, drive efficiencies using technology, but at the same time recognizing that, sure, we're a highly acquisitive firm, and because of the nature of our business and the size of it, we had to develop tools for ourselves, really, in order to run our firm effectively. And in that process, recognized that we had stumbled onto, I think, some great technology tools that we recognize would be of value to the broader industry. I'll just back up and say I'm an old finance guy and worked in corporate finance and consumer products for many years and supported the technology organizations of fairly large consumer products firms. And got to know what I would say the business of technology. And so when I joined our firm, I did several other jobs, kind of finance and planning and strategy, and then moved into the CIO role. I approached the CIO role as a business leader and recognized that there's this whole dynamic of every year the CIO going and begging money from the CFO to, for whatever latest initiative, new, increased license costs or cybersecurity initiatives and things like that. And we had a tiny little company a technology company that had joined our firm through an acquisition many years ago. And we were using some of those tools internally, and it was just kind of on maintenance mode. It wasn't necessarily growing, but I really I was owning a P&L. So a tiny little P&L as part of my role as CIO. And I thought, you know what? Let's see if we can grow this thing. Let's play around and experiment within the budget of that company to see what we can do. Because we knew we had to invest significantly in technology. And so we started playing around with some fintech products and just seeing if there was any traction in the market. And Peter, the experiments took off. And within 18 months, the entire IT organization, the cost of that organization had been completely offset by new lines of revenue from this tiny little experiment that we had launched. And so we knew we had stumbled onto something, which was we had the capacity and the skill and the insight into the industry to produce great software and products. And we also knew that there was a need and a demand for it, and we could do it effectively. So that started us on this journey that was really a sliver of my responsibilities. And over the years, just as we have been acquisitive with management companies, we've done early round investing in technology startups within the industry and outside the industry. We've acquired technology companies. And then a few years ago, we said, listen, we're going to get serious about this. This is now real business. And we bundled it all together and spun it off into an independent firm that I run. I'm president and CEO of a company called HOAM Ventures, but it's an independently operated firm where all of our technology products are bundled together and into the market and growing at significant growth rates, serving the managed community sector as well as those boards that are managing the communities themselves.
And talk a bit about the team at HOAM Ventures, if you would. Who's around you to support what you've just described?
Yes, well, gosh, we had to stand up. We basically stood up business units, marketing teams and sales organization. We have a really robust software development and product organization, as you'd think we would. We have one of our flagship products has 7 million users on it. All of that is supported by our product dev, marketing, sales, customer service, implementation organization. So the organization is about 400 people, about 300 or so engineers and product and technology folks. And then the rest is sales, implementation, marketing. And it's all over the world. We have a fairly large presence in Brazil and in India, and then obviously the United States and Canada. And as the pandemic hit, people kind of scattered to countries all over the world. So I would say we have representation in pretty much all over the place. We are really a global organization. The sun never sets on our operations, and maybe can you see the bags? The bags under the eyes, Peter.
Well, hey, I'm also curious, how do you manage across these different sets of responsibilities, Andrew? It's remarkable how expansive your responsibilities are. And I'm sure a portion of the answer is a good team in place in each of those places who are quote unquote minding the store as you're focused in one direction and not on the other, as you can't focus on everything at once. But I'd be interested in understanding how you govern all that's within your purview.
Yeah, it's a great question. Obviously, we couldn't do any of this without amazing folks. And I would say my core leadership team are folks that have been with me ever since I joined the company. Since I became CIO, and these stats are crazy. I recalculate them all the time to make sure I'm not making a mistake, but I'm a finance guy. I'm pretty sure that these numbers are right. But for the last 7 years as CIO, we've had over 90% employee retention in our technology organization. It was really around 95% until the last few years, which kind of dipped down to 90%. But we've been able to retain all of our, I would say, key talent. And then the other thing that's kind of fascinating about this is that as a company, as I mentioned, we're highly acquisitive. And we can talk about M&A here in a minute, but our approach to M&A is very different. I mean, we are not since I'm talking to some technology people here, it's not like, the Borg, like you must assimilate, right? It's the complete opposite. Our acquisition approach is really about learning from great market leaders and then sharing best practices with one another, integrating where we need to, but basically empowering with new visibility to data, insights, intelligence, performance metrics, and sharing that information across the ecosystem and continuing to acquire. So with that has come fantastic talent that we've been able to add to our organization. Then obviously standing up great technology leaders that support each of the different lines of businesses. So, divisional CIOs who are able to sit in all the staff meetings of the key leaders of our firm and manage them. And so it allows me to spend a lot of my time now on the go-to-market strategies and growth initiatives for our technology companies.
Hey, that's fascinating. I'd love to cover a couple of those topics in greater detail, Andrew, please. I know from past conversations this remarkable retention rate that you've had, and I know that you attribute a lot of that to the culture of this organization. And I wonder if you could take a moment and describe some of the interesting and perhaps unique attributes of the culture of Associa.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I've mentioned this before, but being an old finance guy, my phrase used to be cash is king. In this role, I would tell you culture is king. What has kept people here has been the culture of our firm. And as I mentioned, all of that starts from the very top of our organization. We are a family-owned company. And the number one thing people say about working here is that it feels like a family. And it's the number one thing that keeps them here. So the idea of a sense of family spirit is really important. People feel like they belong. Their voice matters. It's a culture of empowerment. And I would also say it's a culture of entrepreneurialism. I mean, we are a very entrepreneurial firm. Our owner and CEO, John Corona, is, oh my gosh, the guy is just, a world-class mind. And gosh, he could start a business on spinning his pencil that could turn into something. But he's, so that culture obviously starts at the very top. And just to give you an example, the easiest way to tell culture is to listen to the stories that are told and celebrated within a company. Amazing customer service stories are celebrated. Obviously, we're in a customer service business, so those are celebrated. And the idea of new lines of business, those are celebrated. To the extent, such an extent, Peter, I have the honor of serving in the investment committee of our firm. We do kind of the capital investments and all those with project management office and all that, oversee that effort for our firm. And as part of every year's budget season, it's an open submission process from any employee in the firm who has an idea for innovation and improvement or a new line of business. And there are reserved funds, some more than others, depending on the year, but reserved funds set aside to consider all of those ideas across the firm. And many of them are absolutely implemented and tracked. I report on every project to our CEO once a week. And those are very much on the same list that is important to him. So there's something about it. The culture is king. So I think those are very unique aspects to our firm.
Certainly sounds like it. I want to also ask you a little bit more about the M&A expertise that your organization has. Fascinating to think one to two acquisitions a month across your time with the organization. That's just remarkable. And you talked about a moment ago, acquisition approaches about learning from great market leaders, then sharing best practices, integrating where we need to, but it doesn't sound like necessarily fully integrating, all the time, letting these special businesses do what makes them special. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit further about the thought process around what is common versus what is unique as you think about that degree of acquisition across the landscape.
It's a great question. And I would tell you that our approach has honestly evolved some based off of the pace of technological innovation. When I first joined the firm, in order to deploy some technology services, we would have to convert their corporate books, and we would have to convert their client accounting solutions. Everything had to kind of be on the exact same platform or the exact same software in order for us to get any kind of efficiency or visibility into data or operational metrics or anything like that. And so when I first joined the firm, that was my big project. We did a huge customer accounting shared service center, moving people all into one spot and putting everyone on the same tools. And certainly there are, I would say, some companies even now, depending on the size of the firm or perhaps where they fall on the technical kind of evolution maturity curve, some of them, their business models would find that kind of transformation helpful and effective. And then there are others who have super ingrained, unique business processes serving unique components of the market that are really, kind of niche offerings. And so for us, our approach is instead now, because of technology, is how do we deploy the items that allow us to, do health checks on the performance of the operation, to give them tools to help do predictive analytics on their own profitability and performance, help them manage and consume tools and training and technology that would help improve their business, while at the same time keeping conversion disruption to a minimum. And it really is a case-by-case basis. And all that has been enabled through, great API technology and the idea that we have moved our technology offerings really to a platform model. And we've made it work, and we've made it work profitably, so that even, I would say, competitive products and services in the market are operating on our platform because of the success of that initiative. So all that to say, again, it's kind of company by company, culture of company by company, and the idea that honestly, it's a place of humility. We're not approaching an acquisition believing we know everything. We're approaching it to partner, to learn from each other. And that really is a very different approach than even firms that I've been a part of earlier in my career, which mandated integration to a very low level. I would say we're the exact opposite of that. And that has also improved. One, it's helped position those companies for great performance post-deal. And secondly, the word on the street of our approach is so different than others in the market. We don't even have to be out necessarily looking for acquisition deals. They come to us. Our pipeline is packed for many, many months in advance, all based off of word of mouth. And what a better way to market, right? Like there's no better way. And it shows that we're people of our word. So that's also very helpful.
And it strikes me also, you were describing this special entrepreneurial culture that you have. What better way? I mean, many people often say that the innovation often ends for companies post-acquisition, that they've gone from zero to whatever revenue they've gotten, they've bootstrapped, they've perhaps brought in outside investors, they've done all these things that entrepreneurs do to establish a successful business. And then they're acquired, the principals leave, the innovation ends, and it's sort of just about kind of adding to the geographic footprint or the revenue mix or different customers, as the case may be. I'm painting with a broad brushstroke. But it strikes me that the approach you've taken is particularly smart for an organization that prides itself on an entrepreneurial culture, that which the entrepreneurs do well is going to be called upon to continue, as opposed to now everything that made you successful needs to change to the acquired entity's way of doing things. Is that a fair synopsis, would you say?
Absolutely. And I think the other interesting piece to that is that some of those firms also have that entrepreneurial culture, right? So family-owned companies, they've started it from nothing, probably built this into a successful business. And some of that culture exists in those firms. So, there is this sense of, we have these common values, and we know, you can kind of tell fairly quickly, as you're looking at deals, which ones are going to be successful, because it's really shared values. And, and I think there's also an interesting point to that, Peter. It also has a lot to do with the success of our technology companies, because so let me just look, we are a 44-year-old firm owned by a single family who are in it for the long term, right? And I think a lot about our good friend Charlie Feld. He always talks about win the quarter and win the decade. And so many technology companies, even not just in our industry, but all over the market, are chasing the next valuation phase, or there's private equity involved, and they're chasing the next exit. And our approach is very different. Our approach is the long term. We're not going to take shortcuts in creating a fantastic customer experience and investing correctly to scale. Whereas many firms that we've even competed with, I would say, in the open market, gosh, they come racing out like the hare versus the tortoise, right? They come racing out and you're like, oh my gosh, wait, is there something we're missing? And they fizzle out eventually due to they didn't necessarily build the appropriate infrastructure or whatever, because again, they were chasing kind of the next moment. And that's again a unique component to not only Associa, big capital letters Associa, but also Home Ventures and the idea of our technology products and services. We are in this for the long term for our customers and for the industry. And we believe that we can continue to help add value to them as long as they're our customer. And if they go try someone else, well, guess what? We'll still be here when they're ready to come back, continuing to innovate.
That's really phenomenal. And you obviously add a lot of credibility to that, to the fact that you've been there for more than a decade now yourself and, doing all that you do.
Absolutely. And it's, I didn't know, honestly, much about this industry when I joined. A good friend of mine from a big consumer products company joined, invited me over, and I learned a lot about the industry, obviously, but more importantly, found this fantastic culture, which really, it's almost, Peter, like early in my career, the management training programs, right, that kind of move you around from one division to another or one department to another. Here it's, we have a new idea for a new business, go start it, go run it, go build it. Okay, now go grab the next one. I mean, it's a very unique environment. And then on top of that, amazing people with a wonderful family who is obviously owning it and running it at the top. So unique environment.
Yeah, certainly that comes across through your descriptions. I wanted to ask you, Andrew, as you look to the future, what trends particularly excite you? Which ones are making their way onto your roadmap?
This sounds so old, Peter, to even say it's exciting, but I feel like it never stops. And it's data strategy. And it's not because we didn't have one or don't have one in place or don't have processes in place, but the fact that this is with the emergence of AI technology, none of that is even effective without a great data strategy. And on top of that, the massive amounts of information that we're gathering through every single acquisition, every single deal, and the proliferation of that. I'm really excited about ways that we can create new insights off of the foundation of kind of a refreshed data strategy, predictive analytics that our frontline employees and leaders can react to in ways that much faster than others. And again, that's even through API technology now, which is evolving in some areas where, people were areas of our industry that are literally just still sitting on old thick client applications. Even they are now moving to API technology that allows us to move so much faster, to see the entire value chain through data and insights. Again, that sounds kind of boring, Peter, because it's been around for forever, but I just think there's a new wave coming here that we haven't really even seen the great benefits of yet. So data, analytics.
Yeah, great topics, certainly. And I think you're right to underscore the necessity of a focus on data strategy for all that it enables, as you describe. So I don't think it's maybe a topic that people have talked about for a time, but still one that is in need of further investment and investigation. So appreciate you noting it.
I would just say one more item is just, I had the privilege and honor of being at a gathering of CIOs in Switzerland a few weeks ago. And we had a lot of folks from the banking industry there. And it's interesting to watch what's happening with fintech right now. There's a lot of legislation kind of coming, and as the technology's evolving quickly too. I'm watching it really closely. I think there could be some really exciting innovation and development coming out of the fintech space too. So anyway, that was the second one, but I didn't interrupt.
An important one. Thank you for noting that as well, Andrew. I also wanted to ask you, as somebody who's been a CIO now for 7 years, you've taken on these additional responsibilities. You're the president and CEO of Home Ventures. This remarkable purview that we've talked about through different parts of the conversation. But what do you think have been some of the secrets to your success and your rise to your current set of responsibilities, Andrew? As you look backwards, what were some of the difference makers along the way?
I mean, I feel like I'm beating a horse here on this, but the one thing I would say is obviously I found a culture that allows for great movement and growth. So I think that's one thing that's super important. But I think the other thing is, Peter, I didn't really know that I had any kind of skills in the technology space, to be frank. I mean, I was a finance guy, and I worked at PepsiCo prior to this role in a huge technology project and supported all the division CIOs as their finance person, and got to become really close friends with them. And I felt like the secret sauce there was that I was able to help them translate their technology initiatives into business speak and into a business case. And I didn't quite realize that that was a unique thing. And many of them, amazing technology leaders, still running, big technology organizations for Fortune 50 companies, would always say, Andrew, you're in the wrong function. You need to be in IT. And again, it was just the voice of mentors that when the CIO role here came open, I was being asked to take it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't really feel qualified for that. And so we started an interview process, and every single person we were interviewing with knew all the same people I did. I mean, it was technology is a very small world, and gave the same answers that I would have probably given. And so anyway, made a couple of phone calls to several of my CIO friends, and all of them are like, we've told you, do this. And so it was a big risk, big risk to do it. And but I knew the people here were fantastic, and I had fantastic support at the most senior level here. And so I went for it. And little, to find out, there was a real sweet spot here in leading in the business of technology. But it was a risk. So risk taking and trusting the voice of mentors who honestly saw something in me that I didn't recognize myself, and not shying away from it, taking a risk. So anyway, here we are.
That's a great reflection. I really appreciate you sharing that aspect of your story, which is so unusual to say the least. And Andrew, I want to thank you more broadly for a great conversation, sharing some of the details of your remarkable tenure at Associa, your remarkable set of responsibilities as we've described, some of the aspects that make the company itself unusual and unique as well. It's been a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, Peter, thank you so much. And I also just want to thank you for being such an amazing supporter and cheerleader for our industry and for leaders in technology. We couldn't have a better friend than you. And really appreciate you walking alongside of all of us and helping equip us. Really, really honored and privileged to call you my friend. Thanks for having me.
That means a lot to me, especially coming from you, Andrew. Thank you.